it has definitely an international reputation. Even in other countries, it's still called the God Box.
Over the years, it's had various nicknames, Vatican on the Hudson, God Box.
This building is known all over the world. And so all you need to say is the God Box in New York City, and people know immediately that you mean 475.
If you don't know the building, you think of it strictly in the religious context. And when you get here, you find that it is a much more diverse community of nonprofit organizations.
This building really does try to embrace other people, to respect other people.
The Interchurch Center really is a unique community. There's a lot of spirit in the building, there's a lot of camaraderie.
In here, it doesn't feel like New York City. It feels like you're in a small town.
You get to know people that you wouldn't otherwise know.
It's an amazing space.
When the ecumenical movement began, now almost 100 years ago, Protestant churches barely spoke to one another. There was huge rivalry between them.
The Interchurch Center was an original dream of a number of church leaders deeply involved with the ecumenical movement in the 1950s to bring together not only leading denominations in North America, but some of the international leadership from the World Council of Churches and then the National Council of Churches, which was fairly new.
My grandfather was interested in resolving the schism among the various religions of the world and the Christian churches.
And he saw the Interchurch Center as an opportunity to bring together the major Protestant denominations and to foster the ecumenical movement.
When Ruth Peel got the big money people together to build this building, it was really to bring the Protestant denominations together.
She served on all the various boards and agencies of the Reformed Church in America. All the denominations had offices kind of all over Manhattan in different places.
Let me speak a little bit about what it was like before there was the 475 Riverside Drive. The Methodist building was on the corner of 20th and 5th Avenue. And across the street was the Presbyterian building. And then just a block below them was the Episcopal Church.
Ruth said, why aren't we all in one space that we can kind of share the gifts of all these denominations? She claims that she went to David Rockefeller and said, now David, as only Ruth could do, they were friends, you have built that beautiful cathedral up there on the west side. And there's that piece of property kind of across the street to the south of you. And that would be the place that we should put this building where all the churches could be together.
The land was given to this group and deeded by John D. Rockefeller. Because you have to remember that the Rockefellers were also involved in Riverside Church, which is just across the street from us.
This is beautiful Riverside Drive on the west side of Manhattan Island. A new building is being erected on this famous drive. Its cornerstone is to be laid today. The building is the Interchurch Center, and the man who will place the first trowel of mortar on the stone is the President of the United States.
Will you please be seated?
For a young person who was 23 years old, it was really exciting because it was the first time I'd ever seen a live President of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower.
As this cornerstone is placed in the walls of the Interchurch Center, we see in it a special meaning. That cornerstone symbolizes a prime support of our faith, the truth that sets men free.
It was really exciting. Beautiful afternoon.
We had a small organ, and I'd gotten a small choir together, and we were up on the second floor of the building. The building had not been enclosed yet. The walls had not been, but they were laying a cornerstone. There were people all over Riverside Drive to watch the ceremony. We realized it was a history-making thing, and it was fun to be part of it.
The idea was to have this center where there would be primarily Protestant missions, Protestant organizations who could learn and share with one another.
And that was a synergistic kind of thing because it meant that the various mission agencies could converse with one another.
Have one place where denominations can get together.
The building became a practicable place in which the denominations could meet and talk about our joint efforts around the world. And that led then to cooperation in many, many ways.
And it also was an opportunity for the staff from those various denominations to interact without having to go someplace else to meet.
There was a great desire on the part of tenants, and I think on the part of the Interchurch Center Corporation, to be relevant to what was going on in the society and within the religious institutions.
The civil rights movement, when that was here, that was electric. But you see, it began before that. The idea is this building comes out of the 50s, right? You had the return of the mission agencies from overseas. You had many executives who had worked initially there. They had a new sense of justice. And because that happened internationally, then in the United States, there also began to be this great effort for justice.
The Interchurch Center was the brains of the church's struggle to support civil rights initiatives throughout the country.
The organizations that were here were all very, very involved in the civil rights movement and to a degree also in the anti-war movement.
It was an exciting time. We were young, we were all against the war, and when I say all, here in this building, we were definitely what they would now call the liberal side. We were the people who were out marching. We were the people, it was a justice issue, it was a humanitarian issue.
We began to work together, and we had partners in the civil rights movement from other denominations.
During the time of the civil rights movement, many of the executives and various church leaders throughout the building would go off to these demonstrations and would come back with stories of having been jailed and come back with their handcuffs.
I come to say to you this afternoon, however difficult the moment, yes, sir, however frustrating the hour, it will not be long.
It was the nerve center of the church's participation in the civil rights movement. Many people, for example, went to Selma to the march when Martin Luther King came and preached on the steps of the Montgomery Capitol.
We can present thousands and thousands of bodies in the streets if we want to.
Jim Foreman on one Sunday morning marched down the aisle of Riverside Church.
And he walked in the middle of a service at Riverside Church,
carrying the Black Manifesto. It was a document raising up the plight, especially of African Americans in the struggle.
We supported Jim in a lot of stuff that made it possible for him to really make the speech he made at Riverside Drive.
Primarily, the emphasis was on demanding reparations for what had happened to African Americans with slavery and since slavery.
The next thing you know, he invaded the Interchurch Center.
I happened to be here at the time when James Foreman and his group of dissident African Americans came and took over the offices on the 9th floor.
Insisting that those church agencies contribute to a fund called the Black United Fund that was supposed to be for economic development in the black community.
For a week, they stood here.
After a few days, the church leadership got the idea. We can create an instrument of corporate responsibility.
A number of the denominations did make special allocations of funds. Some of them responded by creating special programs.
It was very interesting times.
A great many people who have made a big difference in our world have come in through those doors.
Jesse Jackson was a regular. You'd bump into him anywhere, anytime.
I mean, this is a place where Desmond Tutu would come.
There'd be gatherings with foreign leaders, especially persons who were involved in the liberation movements in Africa.
The first time he came to the United States, he came to 475 Riverside Drive. And he made such a powerful statement in which he said, "I come first to the churches because they were responsible for my freedom." Oftentimes, I think churches don't get credit for the role that they play in very historic events of history. And in this case, he fully gave them credit, which was wonderful.
At that time, what I knew about the Interchurch Center was it was the home of the National Council of Churches, and I knew one thing about it. It was the organization that had sponsored the Revised Standard Version of the Bible. So for that reason alone, this was an important place.
It is one of the glories, I think, of the ecumenical movement that this Bible was produced and has been updated and revised and is used throughout the world.
Just as I was coming in as General Secretary, the new Revised Standard Version, the NRSV, was coming out.
Dr. Father Demetrius Konstantelos, one of the translators of the new Revised Standard Version of the Bible, which was published here under the auspices of the National Council of Churches, presenting that copy to the Patriarch at the time.
The thing that I most remember was the privilege that I had of taking the Catholic edition of the new Revised Standard Version of the Bible to present to Pope John Paul. And he said then, I want you to know that for my personal study, I always study from the NRSV. It's the best single translation there's ever been.
The building originally was many more mainline denominations, and over the years it's changed wonderfully to include so many other aspects of the nonprofit world.
The population of the center is much more diverse than it was when it opened. We have Jewish groups, we have Muslim groups, and we have non-religious, nonprofit organizations.
The building's become interfaith. That wasn't in the minds in the early 50s and when they put the building up, but to see it evolve that way has been great.
We are theologians, administrators, actuaries, health professionals, food preparers, building management specialists, educators, students, communicators.
Through the Interchurch Center, we learned a lot more about the other faiths, nationally and internationally.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
והיה כשבתו על כיסא ממלכתו וכתב לו.
Here you go. Yes.
I think that the ecumenical movement may take a new form, and that this building could be the center of interreligious groups.
It reflects the spirit of what this building was made for, which is to serve together the common good.
Oh, man, that was nice.
Yeah.
It was a living institution, so it's still going on. The city and the nation and the world becomes a place in which a variety of persons from different cultures can assume leadership and need to have places in which their perspectives can be discussed and learned from. The center is appropriate for that.
Oh, yeah, we need to correct that then.
Okay, so I'll tell. Okay.
There's much greater diversity in the building than in earlier years in terms of employees, as well as in terms of agencies.
It's amazing the number of agencies that are able to be here because of a very reasonable rent, because we are a not-for-profit. And probably some of these not-for-profits would not be in New York City were it not for the Interchurch Center.
Currently, there are 80 organizations in the building.
This building is quite unique in that there's a lot more interaction with your neighbors.
One of the things that's, I think, wonderful about this building is the opportunity to be in dialogue with others.
It encourages people to network, to be collaborative.
And then we have some other contribution in the area of pastoral care and counseling in Spanish.
Hispanic, Latinos, and ethnic minorities always felt very much at home in the organizations that work in this building and have a very significant sensitivity and commitment to our concerns and our issues.
We coexist and respect each other, and I think that in itself says a lot in how we should exist in the world.
We don't all speak with one voice, certainly, but the fact that such a diverse group of agencies is in this location, I think, does speak. It speaks that we're all able to get together and live in one house. It's just great.
A number of years ago, we got the Boma Award for the nonprofit buildings, which is the Building Operations Management Association, because we have an incredible cafeteria, we have incredible artwork, we have incredible music.
We have music programs every Wednesday, and the music is varied.
6, 7 basses and sopranos.
From individual artists to ancient instruments to chamber music to everything. We have a gospel choir which performs and is just absolutely wonderful.
We perform noontime concerts. They're free, no charge. Tenants in the building are members of the choir, is all volunteer. We give up our lunchtime.
What makes it special is that you get to get away from your everyday work and just congregate with the same people who have the same passion of music, and it just gives you that extra boost.
We typically make time available for staff to actually come to the concert, and the acoustics are inspirational.
A lot of us get together and enjoy these amenities that are not really offered in any other sort of office setting.
She prints on the fabric.
In addition to that, we also provide art exhibits.
The gallery, well, that's special too. The display is changed probably every month or 6 weeks or so.
The artists come once a month to meet us. I'd love to go to that. That's, it's part of building.
And it has beauty. They have artwork. The integration of so many other parts of, the humanity is here in this building. And the food is delightful.
I hope you can carry it. So much. No problem. I hope y'all enjoy it.
We have a fantastic cafeteria, which is really driven by the needs of the tenants.
People meet each other in the lunchrooms. A lot of work gets done between agencies downstairs in the cafeteria.
How are you? Good. How are you?
There's a lot of neighborhood interaction in that cafeteria.
We may visit one another's offices. We go to lunch together. That's something that may not be readily available in another setting. We also provide a medical office, which is available to tenants and those in the surrounding community.
Which is kind of special and unusual for a building to have its own medical care facility.
We have a medical director who's on call any time that I need anything. I'm there 5 days a week. We try very, very hard to be sensitive to the needs of the building.
It originated back in the days when the National Council of Churches was contained in this facility. And we had missionaries who would travel overseas. And the thought was that they could centralize their medical care, their immunizations, their overall health supervision in one facility.
This was a way to make sure that everybody was really talked to about what to expect, not just given the medications and sent on their way. I think that's pretty darn unusual for an office building.
The Rockefeller Brothers Fund, or RBF as we call it, is a private foundation established by members of the Rockefeller family in 1940. When we heard that a significant amount of space was becoming available here at the Interchurch Center, we knew this was a really good future for us.
John D. Rockefeller was my grandfather. I think he would be delighted that the foundation that his sons created have moved here ourselves. A number of our grantees, 9 I gather, are in this building, so it's nice to be among the people that we support in our grant programs.
We've been able to design and build out this space in a way that is intentional to enhance the organizational culture that we've been trying to build in recent years, and that is a culture of greater transparency. So the glass is a kind of physical manifestation of transparency.
What I see as a difference among the staff is people are much happier to be here at work.
You look at this building from the exterior, and you get a sense of when it was built. It has an architectural style that is representative of 1960. One of the neat things about the project we've just completed by moving in is that we've built out an interior space that is very contemporary and maybe even future-oriented in a lot of ways. And I think that's a nice way of showing how a building of this age can move to the future in a very effective way, and how this place can remain so vital going forward, and I'm absolutely convinced that it will.
There it is. That's the one I need you to send to. Okay.
It's more than just stone and mortar. It really is sign and symbol of our mission in the community and the world.
I think it will continue to be a place where people look to find those who are serious about their faith and are serious about the interactions between their faith and the larger community and the international community.
It is what the world is about now. It is about including everybody and understanding what other people think, believe, do.
There's an awful lot of nonprofits that have moved in here and picked up the vision and carried it on. So there will always be a place for the Interchurch Center in New York City.
Okay, good to see you. All right.
It's our womb. It's the place where everything happens. That's how it was founded. That's how it was intended to be.
Enjoy your day.
Okay, you too.
There are places in other parts of the world where churches and community organizations try to find similar locations, but not to the degree that it has been realized here.
It's a very vibrant community. It's an academic and scholarly community, and that does make a difference.
This is a place for people of all faiths where they can come, they can be together, they can bear witness to the fact that religion is finally, in its last analysis, committed to God's love of all people and to peace. And I can't think of a better thing for the building to stand for.
Do it and do it well. So that's where we are.
It's been a wonderful experience. It's nice to participate in something that is so meaningful to the tenants here in the building and to the community in general.
I've been here for the whole 50 years. You know, I've been very happy working in this building.
And when you come into the building, I would hope and I believe that everyone feels at home.
Having come to this country by myself and the wonderful people that I met here, I consider my family. My family was here.
I travel to our other offices all over the country, and I love coming back here because of what it is, what it reflects about the world we hope and pray can be.
I'm very grateful to have been in right from the cornerstone line.
Freedom of worship is a basic privilege guaranteed by the Constitution. Be it a chapel, a cathedral, a mosque, a church, or a synagogue.
This is my home. It is. It's my home.
I would never want to be working or living anyplace else.
It's a lovely building, a lot of nice people. You'd like it.